Good morning. You'll note that it's quiet in the room. That's because I took the opportunity to mute everybody for the sake of the ability to hear and to have conversation. If you need to unmute yourself, you can, but I figured it's better that you should be intentional in your speech than to be caught speaking unintentionally. So I apologize. It wasn't meant as a muffle, but it should hopefully lead to a better decorum now for the program. As you may note, I am Rabbi Mordechai Harris. I'm the Executive Director for the Center for Jewish Education. But one thing that I am certainly not is our incredible Karen Schlossberg. I cannot replace her by any means. But this morning, Karen unfortunately experienced a fall while she was out walking her dogs. And of course, Karen being Karen, the very first thing she was concerned about was all of you and the success of this program, and her pledge that she made me give that the show would go on, that this program would happen, and so on. And so in the way of Jewish tradition, what we'll do is, this is a learning session. Torah takes many shapes. Torah is referred to as Torah Chaim. It's the Torah of life. And the wisdom that we learn through life is in many ways still Torah. And when we learn Torah together, there is an idea that we can dedicate the merit of that learning of Torah to various purposes, one of which is for a refuah shlema, for a complete and total healing. So for Karen, who has broken the femur in the left arm, who's going to need to heal and recuperate for a little while, we pray that the merit of our collective learning today should go to the refuah shlema for Karen bat Miriam, for Karen, the daughter of Miriam, that she should heal and speedily recover. And now, according to her wishes, the show will go on. So I turn the program over to Charlene Howell.
I believe that is the longest welcome. Karen broke her arm and can't be with you this morning that I have ever heard. I welcome. I'm Charlene Howell. I'm a member of the library committee at Tycher Library. Today we're going to be led by Dr. Lindsay King, who teaches physics at the University of Texas at Dallas. She grew up in Ireland, near Belfast, so I assume Northern Ireland, and got her degrees at Cambridge and the University of Manchester in astrophysics. She's now been at UTD quite a while, and one of the things she does is advise students in physics. So she's going to advise us today about the physics and the story of Hannah's War by Jan Eliasberg.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. Hi. When I spoke with Karen, she asked if I would like to give a lecture or how I would like to, what we'd like to do this morning. And I said I would prefer to be very interactive. So it would be really great, if to have a good discussion. So what I thought I would do would just be to give a quick overview of the book, and I'm guessing that most people have read the book. I'll start. This is the first time I've led a book club, so apologies if it's strange. So anyway, I really enjoyed Hannah's War, and I could see a lot of parallels with the life of Lisa Meitner. And there were some differences, quite notable differences that I'll also discuss. So to give a recap of the book starts with Hannah Weiss on her way to the prison for a trial in Fort Leavenworth, which in Kansas, from Los Alamos. And at the very beginning, I thought, oh goodness, this is going to be very I was worried that it was going to turn out unhappily ever after. Anyway, then in the novel, there's a lot of stepping through time. So it kind of like goes backwards and forwards in order to build the story. And the basic idea is that Hannah Weiss was living in Berlin before the Second World War. And she was a scientist, a physicist, and one of the topics that she was working on was actually related to the Manhattan Project in the US, which was involving the production of the like nuclear fission bombs. So Hannah had become involved with a gentleman, another scientist, whose family seemed to be politically favored by the Nazis, even though there was no indication that they themselves, were like sympathizers. So she became involved with this scientist, who then like supported her, or actually helped her to leave Germany eventually, and also helped her cousin Sabine, which Hannah had thought that Sabine was leaving Germany along with the partner of this chap was actually a lesbian, and this partner's the lesbian partner also had to leave Germany. And so the idea was that this lady Lotta and the cousin Sabine were on the way to Cuba, and that's what Hannah had been led to believe. So this is like a part of the side story. So related to the why Hannah has ended up in prison awaiting a trial that she said is going to be a sham trial is because she has been accused of espionage. So being accused of sharing secrets from the project at the Manhattan Project with the Nazi, with the program in Germany. And anyway, so there had been a telegram that had been sent by one scientist, and it was discovered eventually that that scientist had acted on behalf of Hannah in order to pass some information. And then there were also like a series of postcards that were taken to be information that she had been sharing secrets. And a character who is actually a major, but has a Jewish background, but has changed his name to Jack Delaney from Jacob. So he also is sent to investigate the situation at Los Alamos, and eventually he falls in love, I think it's fair to say, with Hannah, and he's trying to do his best to help her, but they conclude that she is guilty of espionage, and they think that she has been duped by the Nazis into sending secrets and so on. And so then I thought that the physics inside the novel, I thought it was very reasonable. I thought a lot of what was discussed kind of mirrored certainly what was being developed at the time regarding the nuclear weapons, and the sort of like the thing which actually saved her in the end was that it turned out that Hannah had not been sending secrets to Germany. She had actually been conspiring with some of the German scientists in order to stop the production of the nuclear bomb by the Nazis. And this only came to light very, very, very late on in the novel. And to be honest, I wasn't quite sure why Hannah hadn't revealed it like earlier on, before she was sent off to Fort Leavenworth. And so what they had done, so in summary, was that the the Nazis had been led to believe that the bomb would have to be, I think it was like 12 meters in size. And, they used the analogy of something like the size of a giant oak tree, and that the Luftwaffe would have to develop new planes in order to carry the bomb. And basically then that, would require a large, very, very, very large amount of uranium. And also then, it was like thought to be like a ridiculous prospect. And so then it was said that, okay, this wasn't going to happen. And so, by the way, I just like to say, I had a text from someone who is trying to join the book club, and maybe they have the old link. So just as an aside. Sorry, hi. So I think in summary, the physics aspect of the novel, I thought was all pretty reasonable. I thought that in many ways, the character Hannah, her life was very much mirroring, like I said, Lisa Meitner. The one big difference between the Lisa Meitner character and the Hannah character was that Meitner had also been asked to join the Manhattan Project, along with like Oppenheimer and so on, but had refused to be involved in the development of weapons. And Meitner had instead moved to Sweden for a long time and taken refuge in Sweden. So in terms of physics in the novel, I don't think there was anything very complex or anything, very, very frightening. If anyone hasn't read the novel yet, it's not something to get worried about the physics itself. I thought the premise was very reasonable as to why, what the Nazis thought, that the bomb would have to be too large. On the other hand, I was kind of wondering, there were some aspects which made me wonder, wouldn't there have been, information would have been probably passed, there are spies kind of like everywhere on all sides. And I was kind of surprised that like as much of the development at the Manhattan Project had stayed so secret that the Nazis did not have more information. And so I did a little bit of reading of the history of why the German effort to develop the nuclear bomb had actually failed. And that turned out to be one of the reasons that was given was that like a technical reason, something to do with what's needed for the the materials which go into the weapon. And it was thought that there's a very well-known scientist called Heisenberg, and it was thought that perhaps he had kind of suggested some of wrong materials be used, but it's sort of been historically concluded that there were several kind of mistakes that led to the failure of the German program. So it wasn't to do with the size, but it was several kind of things which had sort of failed along the way. Anyway. And there were other parts of the story which I don't know if people found a little bit more difficult to believe. So, for example, things with her cousin, the cousin Sabine that had disappeared, and it turned out that the ship that had headed to Cuba was actually turned away from Cuba and had gone to France. And then it seemed to turn out that actually Sabine had joined Mossad and was now like a Mossad agent in communication with the CIA. And that only, was like one of the final communiques in the book was in something like 1949, whenever the Sabine under her false name was like communicating with the CIA. And the thing which I didn't think was very realistic about that was that if Sabine had been in Mossad and had been in communication with the CIA, I didn't understand why she wouldn't have told Hannah that she was alive, because Hannah, didn't know whether she was alive or dead. So I just thought if someone was like a spy or an agent in some kind of, they would be able to find Hannah and to let her know they were alive. I thought that in terms of women in science, and again, I was reading a bit about the life of Lisa Meitner, and she was, I think, the second person in the world to get a PhD, the second woman in the world to get a PhD. And I thought that I wasn't sure whether Hannah's treatment, I think it was her poor treatment eventually in Germany, was a combination of being Jewish, but also being a woman. And when she worked in the Manhattan Project, it seemed to be that perhaps she was getting like more respect, although somehow treated differently than the men were being treated. So and one of the things that Karen had mentioned is kind of like women scientists and whether about recognition and so on. And again, with Lisa Meitner, one of the historical things which has been brought up is that she was never awarded the Nobel Prize, even though she made very, very big contributions to the process of nuclear fission. And looking into that historically, there seemed to be a number of reasons why that occurred, why she wasn't awarded the Nobel Prize. I wasn't so sure that, and there didn't seem to be a reason to do with being like female. I couldn't see, but it seemed to be more like subject area and something to do with the Nobel board at the time being more kind of a little bit parochial in terms of who they would award the Nobel Prizes to. Anyway, that's my kind of summary, and I really like to hear what everyone thinks, or what people's thoughts on the novel actually are, and which things you found realistic and which things you didn't find to be realistic, and so on.
I have a thought to put in on the Nobel Prize problem. My husband has done a lot of research on women in science and issues like not receiving the Nobel Prize. And it was very, very, very much slanted towards her. It was jerked out from underneath her. They tried to keep it a secret for a long time, but she definitely deserved it, and the rug was definitely pulled out from underneath her.
Yeah, I was reading how people really thought that she very much deserved it, and that later on she was awarded some very prestigious prizes, and people were saying that I think Albert Einstein had called her like the Marie Curie of yeah. So I think, yeah, that for whatever reason, it's like historically people were saying it was such a shame. She had been nominated so many times, but never was awarded. Yeah. Yeah, and then in later times, I can think of also some, there's a scientist in the UK called Jocelyn Bell Burnell, and she was one of the discoverers of objects called pulsars in the late 1960s. And it's also thought that she was someone who should have also received the Nobel Prize, but it went to her like thesis advisor and another male colleague, kind of thing. Yeah. So how realistic did you find the novel? How, did people find it realistic?
I just found it an interesting yarn. After researching Lisa Meitner's life, with the basis of, and it was just a good story. But once you research the actual life of the scientist and what she accomplished, you kind of like, maybe I shouldn't have read that first.
Yeah, I was like you, I was like looking at Lisa Meitner's life, and it just seems so rich and so, so many accomplishments. Yeah. So what do you think about the difference between Lisa Meitner not going to the US and the Hannah character going to the US? Do you, I guess this was just part of the plot development, really, like if they wanted to stop the the German kind of production of nuclear weapons, maybe it was better also for Hannah to go to the US, but I didn't quite understand that aspect.
Well, I think that she thought she might have more opportunity.
Do you know if there's any evidence that Otto Hahn, who got the Nobel, ever was asked about Lisa Meitner's role in it?
And Otto Hahn, from what I read, was more of a chemist. And I heard that like the Nobel Committee really thought that the aspects that were being done by chemists were more important in the nuclear fission. And yeah, so I think that it kind of seemed to go along subject lines rather than anything else. But I think that though widely, it's regarded that she should have received it, and yeah. And they could always have done it in some other year, even if it wouldn't have been in the same time as Otto Hahn and so on.
It was she who made the major breakthrough that led to everything else being possible. She had that one little key that they were completely stumped on and couldn't get past, and it was her work that enabled the whole thing to come together.
Yeah, and that I would, very much agree from reading that. One of the things I think that the Swedish has said was that her work was more like a theoretical thing, but you're right in that it wasn't understood, like the process wasn't understood, the nuclear fission process. And so that other people, I think, were more experimentalists, sort of carrying out things which were under, part of her suggestion.
Does anyone think that Jack Delaney was necessary to the story?
I was I was even wondering, like, why. I was kind of a little bit. It was a little bit strange that at the start of the novel, the Hannah character is saying like how she'd loved two men, and I'm guessing, without naming them, that Jack was like, one of them, and that like both men like had held truth like far from themselves, sort of thing, and that had been damaging to her. I guess like it was necessary to have someone as an investigator, but I don't know whether they would have had a romantic relationship with her, or would they have been more disciplined, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but it added more interest to the story by adding that. It developed more of the plot of the story by adding that into it. And that she had an interest in two people. And would she actually go back to Germany to the fellow that I think her coming to America, I think she felt like maybe she had more opportunity where she wasn't getting any credit for what she was doing in Germany, really. Somebody else was taking her information and putting it off as theirs. And America looked like a new hope. The country itself was a little more progressive, I think, even at that time for women than she would have been. Of course, she was also Jewish, which was not going to be a positive thing to start with. And coming here, she probably had a little more opportunity to, express her ideas and things like that. And I think she did when she came here. People did listen to her.
Yeah, I also wondered if part of it was to do with the like her cousin, because she knew there was something to do with the cousin going to Cuba, and then like I think it was thought that she would have then also gone to the US, from Cuba, kind of thing. And I guess the Manhattan Project was also like you say, where a lot of scientists had gone from Germany just before the Second World War. So it seemed like a very natural place for her to go to.
Well, this is her way out of Germany, and it was a safe way out of Germany. If she had gone to Cuba, she might not have gotten here, because even a lot of the people who went to Cuba had difficulty getting to the United States. They were willing to allow her to come in automatically, and she didn't have to wait on a line or wait till her time was up or whatever. They wanted her, and this was a good situation for her. I mean, she had to leave somebody who she really cared about, but she looked at what was going on around in Germany, and you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that she wasn't going to survive.
Do you from what I was reading, I was even surprised that she stayed in Germany as long as she did. I was like surprised that, because her uncle, I think it was Uncle Joshua, she was saying, suggesting to him that he got a position in Cambridge. And I think, they were early on going to send her cousin, somewhere else as well. I was surprised that they all stayed in Germany as long as they did. And like from what I was reading, also it seemed like that was maybe more common than I would have imagined, that people remained longer, because they thought that, oh, this is our country, things are going to change, this is just it's all going to be over very soon, the madness. And I think before people really realized the horror of what was going on,
It's very true, because a lot of people did stay. Some brothers and sisters left, and they, really tried to convince others, and they said, oh no, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. You can send for us late. Well, later didn't come. Later didn't come. You either got out early, or you probably were not going to get out.
Yeah, and I was reading some communiques from from Lisa Meitner to other scientists who had remained in Germany. And she was really very scathing about, why they had remained in Germany. So these were non-Jewish people, but that had stayed, and remained as scientists there. And and so I don't know what people think about that. She said that like if you think about the atrocities, how could they be there and kind of like in tacit sort of support of that regime? And there's like a very interesting like a statement that Lisa Meitner made about
weren't there a lot of Nazi scientists that were actually working on projects in the United States and secretly brought to the United States to work on these?
That's what I had also heard. A lot of the like people that would be important for the space sciences program. I don't know if you heard the same thing.
I don't know about space, but I heard that
actually a lot of that was after the war.
Yeah.
Actually, for the NASA program, they recruited a lot of the, like ex-Nazi scientists. And I mean, some of them were enthusiastic Nazis, if forgiving. Some of them were, just working under, that regime. A lot of them were on the NASA.
That was after the war.
After the war, yeah.
But I did find it was a little bit, disturbing what you said, that people almost like got a pass from like war crimes and things for being sort of scientifically useful, which I don't think, I mean, was a very good thing to happen. But I think you're right that did happen.
And have there been any women who have received the Nobel Prize in Science?
Yes. So there have been, but the numbers are very small. I don't, recall all of the names, but I think it's actually getting better as time like progresses.
Yeah, there is a scientist, and I believe she is a chemist, that was dealing with DNA with another young lady. She was on an interview I saw on television just the other day, and she received the Nobel Peace Prize this year for science. She teaches out, I want to say, in Berkeley, in that area, and it had to do with DNA and separating out parts of it so that they could take out the part that was causing an illness and replacing it with something else. And they showed a young lady, I want to say it was in Mississippi, who had sickle cell. And what they did is they went in and they, with the DNA, took out the section of that was causing her sickle cell and replaced it with another product that they had created. And she hasn't had any problems since.
Wow.
I mean, it was wow. I was watching this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. That is called CRISPR.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I don't remember whether it was on one of the morning shows or something.
It was. It's been on a couple of things lately, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal because they're talking about now, changing different genes and things. Are we going to have super smart kids because somebody says, well, I want my kid to be blue-eyed and blonde, or I want.
Right, but there's a kind of a morality issue there too. It's like designer,
designer children.
Yeah, I mean, designer genes. I don't know.
Well, but I thought that was very interesting, and she just recently won the Nobel Peace Prize. So there are.
I don't think it was a peace prize.
Wasn't it a peace prize?
No, it was for science, not peace.
Right, it was in science.
Anyway, her name is Jennifer Doudna, and Walter Isaacson just wrote a book about her called The Code Breaker.
Because he was
the Code Breaker.
I just got an email about it.
Yeah, that's very cool, right?
Yes, it is.
So, so I think that things are getting, are getting better in terms of Yeah, I'm actually, I must say, I'm very surprised. I was thinking about this. The number of women physicists in like the Dallas-Fort Worth area is like remarkably small. So if I think about the number, even in, TCU, like Fort Worth, or other universities nearby, it's really kind of shockingly small, and I don't know why that is, like in this particular area. Anyway.
Dr. King?
Hi.
Hi. In your role as an advisor at the college, the university, is it possible for you to encourage women to join science fields to make a better pool so that women would be more involved in the sciences?
Yeah, so we have we're about to run this summer, and we've been doing this for the past few summers. The National Science Foundation have programs where called research experiences for undergraduates. And those are particularly aimed at underrepresented people. So women and underrepresented students, either from minority students or, those with less advantaged socioeconomic backgrounds. So there are programs that we have, summer research programs. And then also we try to go to have outreach things for high schools and for middle school pupils. And so in a couple of months' time, we have like a coding camp, a coding workshop for high school women. And that's been organized by some of the undergraduates that I like, that do research with me. So we put in a proposal and are going to do this little it'll be about 20 students from high schools in the sort of like Dallas, Fort Worth area. And then that's to try to encourage especially women students to learn a bit of computer programming. And then it's thought that then when you get to college, you feel more comfortable with some of the skills that are needed to progress. So there are various kinds of things to encourage people.
Yeah, and the federal government has instituted, and it's been several years, a STEM program. Right. And this is all about science, math, computers. It starts in elementary school right away in kindergarten, first grade. The program is quite wide-reaching, and it is to promote science and everything to all children, but there's a heavy emphasis on involving girls and changing their viewpoint that, oh, that's for boys. And it's quite nourishing, and it's quite exciting when you see what's going on in the schools on the STEM program. And this leads right into your work.
And in the US, have you seen, if you compare, 10 years ago or so, or 20 years ago, can you see a positive progression in terms of women's involvement and girls' involvement in science and those fields?
Definitely.
I'm a former teacher, and when I was teaching years ago, we didn't have those programs. Now, within the last 10 years, with STEM coming in, I substitute occasionally, not this year, but I have. And what I've noticed is the different schools that I go to, more and more of them have a STEM program. And the girls that are involved are quite numerous. They are just as competitive as the boys are. And they really get into building and constructing and the types of projects that they're doing. And they are very, very much into that. And a lot of these kids are really taking off. So there's a lot of promise for our young ladies to keep going as far as that goes.
One of the big examples is if you follow, there are robotics
Yes.
competition.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've watched them off and on for about the past 10 years. And in the beginning, it was all boys. And recently, in the past 2 years, it's as many girls as it is boys involved in the robotics competitions.
But just remember that the girls' motor skills are usually much more developed at a younger age than the boys are. And I see the young girls going in there and doing, especially with the robotics, doing the little tiny details with the different pieces and things like that. And their hands are working a lot better than the boys are. I want to tell you that.
Yeah, fine motor control is a girl thing.
Lindsay, I have another question in reference to this book. Do you know anything about Oppenheimer? Did they portray him correctly in the book? His personality and the fact that he had, I guess it was a woman who was apparently had a problem with the Nazis or something. Do you know anything about him?
I only know, I mean, from sort of like historical things. I remember when I lived in the UK, the BBC had a really excellent drama on, Oppenheimer and the Manhattan Project and so on. I was wondering whether was the woman that they referred to, was she, it kind of implied that she was a communist or something. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know in detail, but yeah, they were saying, and it sounded like, yeah, that was also starting to be like in the US. I think this was before the era of McCarthy and so on. But I think that was almost like becoming a problem for him. I wasn't sure. I thought that the way, I suppose, the character was described agreed quite well with what I'd seen, like in the BBC drama, which seemed to be pretty well done.
Lindsay, is there any way you could share how you?
Oh, hi, Marilyn. Hi. How are you?
Hello.
Hi. Nice to see you.
Nice to see everyone. I wanted to know if Lindsay would share some of how she happened to get into science and a PhD. Could you share a little of that, Lindsay?
Yeah. So I was born at a time in the north of Ireland when the troubles were starting between the Protestants and Catholics, and basically my parents split up because of reasons surrounding that. And so my parents had split up, and I was adopted by my father's parents. So my father actually took me, and his parents adopted me when I was a few months old, essentially. And so my grandparents, they hadn't had a college education, or, they hadn't been able to do that, but they really wanted to give me lots of, they bought me chemistry sets and microscopes, and, I was very supported in terms of what I wanted to do. And I was always interested in, things to do with space and things to do with science, all sorts of science. And I went to then secondary school at 11 in Belfast, and it was a single-sex school, like a all-girls school. And that, I think, was one of the things that I didn't have. There was really no peer pressure there. Oh, you shouldn't do this because it's not for a girl kind of thing. And I just always enjoyed science and mathematics, and then decided I'd had it in mind I would be a high energy physicist, like a particle physicist, as I was going to in secondary school. And then I was thinking where would be good for physics? Oh, Cambridge is cool. That will be good. So I kind of was pretty naive. I just didn't really think, oh, I won't succeed. I just kind of went for what I thought would be kind of cool and interesting. And then, yeah, so I'd always had, great support from my family and other, relatives as well. And in the summers, I would go over to England to some relatives, either in London or Manchester, and they would take me, to museums and, various like places to do, very educational things. And yeah, and then when I got to university, I discovered after doing astrophysics classes that was really kind of what I wanted to do. And then I have relatives who live near, there's a big telescope in Manchester called Jodrell Bank, and relatives who live near there. And I thought, okay, that will be cool for a PhD program. But I do remember when I was at secondary school. So our secondary school goes between like 11 and 18. So it kind of combines high school and all the other things. And when I was thinking of applying to, I was going to apply to Cambridge. And I remember speaking with the principal, and I was actually at a convent school, and the principal, who was a nun, I distinctly remember her saying to me, "Oh, but what about medicine? Because that's a good career for a woman." And I, at the time, of course, I really wanted to do physics, so I just didn't really know what she was talking about, like what career for, why not physics kind of thing. And, because there you apply to enter medical school at 18, you would study that immediately. So yeah, so I just kind of kept on going. I don't know whether it's been sensible or not, but yeah, a lot of support and encouragement. Very interestingly, in my final year in physics in Cambridge, there were about 120 people, and there were 12 women. So that's that's only, 10%. And a lot of those women, I think, had similar, actually had gone to single sex schools, which are somewhat common in the UK, like in Ireland and the UK. So I don't know whether it was because maybe there was less peer pressure and things as to what, constitutes a subject that a girl should study, kind of thing. But yeah, I've always enjoyed, like sciences and yeah.
Very good.
I have another interesting one for you. There's a book out called The Other Einstein. It is a true accounting of Einstein's wife. He wasn't as nice a guy as everybody thought he was. She was a brilliant mathematician. She came up with a lot of the work that was a precursor to his work that probably wouldn't have happened were it not for her calculations and things. And he took all the credit for everything. In all the papers that he wrote explaining what he did, so forth and so on, not one time did he give her credit for any of her work. So it's been around for a while.
Yeah, I read it.
Is that I was reading a biography, and it sounded like Einstein, like you said, some of the ways that he treated his wife, it was almost like a pathological ignoring, but more than that, it kind of sounded, whether was he intentionally doing that, or do you think it was some kind of like condition that he had?
All the indications are that it was very intentional. I think a lot of men thinking at that time was that women were subservient or sub-intellectual, and he just depended, on her work to help him solve things. But his ignoring her contribution was quite deliberate.
That's really bad. I hadn't heard of that part.
The book she's talking about is historical fiction by Marie Benedict. She's the author, but the book itself is fiction, but it's based on history.
Okay.
Yeah, and my husband did a lot. He gives classes on women and their accomplishments. So he did a lot of digging into those, accusations. And there's a lot of nonfiction proof out there, or, things that lean towards the things that she accomplished that she never got credit for.
Just to change the subject slightly for a moment, one thing that really interested me in this book are the musical references. I do not know if they are true or not, but on page 200, it says, when Niels Bohr is stuck, he says, what would Mozart think? And I thought to myself, I love the connection between music and science. That's always been something, the mathematical aspect of music has always been very strong with me. And I appreciated, she also talks about Bach's prelude and B flat minor. And I love those things. I think that, I don't know if they're true or not, but they may be, so.
Yeah, I liked the reference. Was it like Stefan was playing the Bach whenever, he was just, whenever he was found by Jack? I think it was the Bach he was, yeah.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we are at the hour time. It's 11 a.m. Now I'd like to do two things. I would like to thank Dr. King for leading and making a wonderful presentation for us. And I'd like to thank everyone here for coming. And it was such an enjoyable program. And just as Rabbi Harris said, I'd really like this to be in the merit of a complete recovery for Karen. And the other thing I'd like to mention is the spring read on March the 21st. It's a Sunday at 3:30 p.m. Please register. It's going to be terrific. And I look forward to seeing you all there. Anyway, have a great day, and look forward to seeing everyone soon.
Linda, do you know what next month's read is?
I
have here that it's the Fabergé Secret.
Oh, yes.
Charles Belfour.
Did she leave that, or did she change that? Because she was looking to change that.
No, because Charles Belfour is going to be interviewed on, just a minute. I can't see in the dark. But they're going to have a Zoom interview with Charles Belfour on
21st.
No, that's Jan Eliasberg, the author of this one.
Yeah.
But anyhow,
Tuesday, April 13th at 1:30 is what I have here from.
That's
Belfour. Yeah.
1:30.
Okay, but Miss Karen will hopefully be back on her feet and able to communicate with all of you all the details of these upcoming programs as well. So.
That's right. Belfour is a very interesting writer. He teaches, he's an architect and teaches historic preservation at Columbia. I have a friend who took his class, and he always has some aspect of architecture and building construction in his novels.
Okay. Do you know if the tunnel is going to be the next month or something? Because she had sent something out about that.
I do not know which month the tunnel will be presented.
Okay.
But we will make sure, as the CJE's Tycher Library, there will be communication, ahead of and in advance of any programs.
Thank you, Glenda.
You are welcome. Thank you all.
Thanks a lot, everyone. It was really nice. It was a lot of fun.
Have a great day.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
Lindsay.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Jan Elias is also a great interview. The 21st will be fun. I got asked to do the interview, so I hope you will all come to that. I have never done that before. I've done it on the phone, but never on the Zoom business. So hopefully it will be great. See you all.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Be healthy. Take care. Dr. King, good to see you.
Bye. Good to see you. Bye.